I was laying on the ground and it occurred to me that I took the hardest punch of my life, and not only am I okay, but I'm far more than okay. So this episode is going to be an especially important one to us because it is an episode that Alex and I have been planning on making for a very long time, because it's not only related to how our friendship started in general and almost how this podcast started, but it is related to a wonderful comment that was left a couple of weeks ago on one of our episodes. That comment was by Mixmaster5331, and the comment was, "Could you explain the Jeet Kune Do part a little more? I'm intrigued." What they're referring to is that in the last Bebop episode that we did, which was, it was based on the episode where Spike, why am I forgetting his name now of all times? Where, what happened? No, not Rocco. No, Spike and Vicious. When Spike, so in the last episode, we talked about Spike and Vicious's first showdown in the cathedral. And during that episode, one of us, we started speaking very briefly about how camera Jeet Kune Do is different from real Jeet Kune Do. Well, for those of you who don't know, Alex and I met because the two of us decided to go to a Jeet Kune Do school here in New York City. Alex actually joined because of Bebop. I joined for very similar reasons as well that Jeet Kune Do actually helped me deal with, very personal reasons that we'll talk about today. That being said, my name is Charles.
And my name is Alex. And I use No Way as Way. Or at least I try to.
And this is the Day Chaser Podcast. This is, again, a very special episode. And yes, we will be talking about Jeet Kune Do, but like everything we do, we try to talk about important things through the vein of a specific piece of media. So that media we've chosen today is the episode Waltz for Venus from Cowboy Bebop. Going back home.
Back home to daddy.
Yes.
Cowboy daddy.
Alice, could you give them like a recap on what this episode is, maybe what Bebop is, that sort of thing, for the new listeners, people who didn't grow up on this, so that, you know, they're bridged into the meat of it.
If you didn't have insomnia at 1 a.m. when Adult Swim was first showing up on television, Cowboy Bebop episode, I don't remember the number, Waltz for Venus, is about the Bebop crew they're going to Venus, as the title implies, and they're after, I believe, a bounty, or they're doing something, I can't quite remember. And a Spike has to fight some goons on the plane, and this guy sees him fuck up these goons so effectively that he becomes sort of like enamored, parasocial, whatever, with him, and is like, "Teach me kung fu," and he's like, "No," and he's like, "Come on," and he's like, "Oh, cool, no," and then he finally relents, and he teaches him, and it's the only time you ever see Spike really, aside from the whole "my left eye is fake" kind of a thing, that he goes into his sort of philosophy of like what emotional health is and what fighting is. And it's interesting that he can only explain his philosophy on emotional health through the lens of "this is how I fight," but that doesn't mean that it is there in his mind. Turns out the guy that wants to learn to fight from him is on the run because he stole a plant that has some seeds in it that is supposed to cure his sister's blindness. And something, the guy dies, Spike goes to visit the sister, who's going to be fixed soon.
Stella.
But there's this really poignant moment. Yeah?
No, it's Stella. That's the name of the sister. Her name is Stella.
Stella. Oh, okay. Stella! Stella has not been able to see yet, but she's got the treatment, and there's this really beautiful moment. She's like, "Get Rocco in here, I can't wait to see him." And he just says nothing. And she just touches his face and says, "He's dead, isn't he?" And she goes, "Well, it must have been something bad." And then Spike doesn't really correct her, but he just goes, "Yeah, he was a really great guy," and just walks away. And I think even that moment kind of, like, I view it not as a fight necessarily, but it is very, he's not fighting against the current, try to convince her, no, he was a sweetheart and he loved you, but he just kind of lets her feel her feeling and doesn't get involved, which is very much sort of how it goes along with his "Be Like Water" monologue. And I think this episode is just beautiful, and it is the episode I always point to when someone goes, yeah, but he's a bad person, he's a shithead, I'm like, he gave the seeds back so that she could see. Come on, man. And told her that her brother wasn't bad. He did it just gently. But I think this episode is brilliant, not just because it is so moving because of the characters, but I've recently been very much learning the value of being calm and the value of feeling the tension in your heart and body and going, okay, how much of this is excess and how much of this do I need to function right now? And it has improved my life drastically because it is a symptom, or a sign, I should say, it's not a symptom, of leaving survival mode, that you can be more aware in your body and of your emotions. And like when you go, oh, I'm at a 95%, I need to be at like a 75%. And then you get rid of, if you can dial down that tension and unwind, you go, oh, why was my neck tight? Why was my shoulders tight? You are just better at what you want to do because there isn't as much static in the way. And I think that it is really, that scene is so good because he's like, hey, you're tense, I'm not. This is what happens when you're not tense. You can actually see your own skills clearly. And that's a valuable lesson to learn, particularly if you are a competent person, because you can often fall into that competence trap where you are good at a thing or good at it as a person, but you get so worked up about, I need to be good, that the tension builds up and you can't even use your own abilities. And then once you go, whew, oh wow, there was like a half a breath stuck in my body I didn't know was there. Now you like see into the Matrix a little bit, and you can actually use the skills that you've worked hard to develop.
Yes, that's a very poignant way to sum up the episode, and also your own personal journey with Jeet Kune Do. And I guess the true, I guess we already had a soft start. I guess the true start would be around there. Alex and I, our friendship started in that school because the two of us were among, I mean, I don't know if we exactly were rare, but we were among the handful of people who found each other in a way that allowed us to speak about an idea of this martial art, Jeet Kune Do, the martial art that Bruce Lee invented, as being an emotional language. By that, yes. Alex and I, when we joined that school, we weren't just joining because we wanted to learn how to fight. We wanted to learn how to be there for ourselves as individuals and possibly there for others. It was a move of empowerment. And if you know anything about any martial art, I don't care if it's Jeet Kune Do, it could be Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, Capoeira, any one of these martial arts. Every martial art that has been invented under the same principle, to empower those who feel like they cannot fight for themselves. And most of my life, I felt like that. Most of my life, I felt like I didn't have the ability to fight for myself or anyone else. A lot of it was informed by being punished whenever I wanted to stand up for myself and being too small to do anything about the people who were wrongfully punishing me, or being in a state of distress and legitimately needing help, but then nobody standing up to defend me. Also, when I was very young and too small to defend myself. Fighting and Jeet Kune Do has taught me that when it comes to fighting in any form, not every version of it comes naturally to you. There are some people who are natural fighters where they know how to fight with their hands or go into an argument or fight for their own personal well-being, because there's a lot of different ways that you can fight. Like, not every version of a fight involves you swinging, throwing your hands or kicking somebody. There's a lot of different kinds of fights. But for some of us, fighting is something that has to be learned. It's something that has to be taught and witnessed. And there have been many stories, and a lot of the people who have these stories that I've collected these stories from, they didn't catch this, but there have been stories that I've heard of people where they saw like their parental figure or somebody they respected doing something combative or like some kind of conflict that they engaged in the street or in front of them that they saw, and the next thought that they had as a child was, wow, that person can do that, like Miss Rachel said, my adult, like my grown-up can do that, or like my dad or my mom, they can do that. That means I can do that. Some of us didn't get those examples. And if some of us did get them, they were used against us, and we were often the victim of those things. And you develop a negative association with fighting for yourself. When I joined Jeet Kune Do, I was on a journey to defeat that negative association. I did not want to believe the narrative that I could not fight for myself. I didn't want to believe the narrative that I was a coward And not necessarily that I did believe it, but I needed confirmation that these things that were haunting me were not true. And nothing in life was giving me the confirmation that I needed to say, yes, if something bad happens, I will stand up. Or at least there weren't enough examples in life to make me feel confidently about it. So I went on this journey. I joined the school. Alex, for similar reasons, he joined. Why don't you tell him, like, because I know part of the reason you joined was because of Cowboy Bebop. Could you share that a little bit?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So let me say this. So I joined a martial art, and then Bebop just sort of funneled me there because I thought it was really cool. But then I really took to it because I really vibe with the philosophy of it and the simplicity, and the easy answers is the wrong way to describe it, but the simple answers having a complexity to them, like the concision of it all speaks to how my brain works. I joined a martial art basically for the same reasons you did, that it was a way to say no more self-abandoning. Like, I'm not gonna be afraid to speak my mind. Like, before I started doing martial arts, the best way I could describe this was I always felt like in any interaction with any person, I was like saying three things away from them trying to break my nose, and I would have no defense against that. And that doesn't mean it necessarily would, but it was always in the back of my brain, like, I wonder what innocent things I could say that this person would hate for me just existing, that I would then be under physical attack. And I was so deeply afraid of other people, particularly other men, that I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I need to, not in that way, the Death Wish kind of Dirty Harry way, like, I need to start learning to fuck people up so I can, but it's like, I need to have a calm within myself that I know that just in case, I would be okay. Even if it's just to get away. And knowing that I can trust myself and take up space like any other person, because let's say I do end up with somebody and I just very calmly exist and they hate it and they attack me. Well, I can slip and run away. Like, I don't need to, I have other options in my mind now than just the physical, it will be a death end game. And I've been threatened by people before, and it was really scary. Really scary, and I never wanted to feel that unsafe again. And like I said, I don't mean that in a macho alpha way, like, so I decided to take the reins of power and learn how to pick up the blade. Even though we do blade training, it's really cool.
Yeah, it's really
I just
fun.
meant in that way, like you were saying, the art of like learning to not self-abandon. Just like, okay, look at this thing that I did that is literally geared around attacking by defending yourself. And that is what interception is. It's using someone else's motion to basically trick them into walking into your fist, with the least work possible. And demystifying this thing, defending yourself or feeling safe, to the point where I just go, okay, this is something I can learn, not just intellectually, but emotionally. I can make my central nervous system understand, like, hey, if you feel unsafe, there are markers, and there are also ways to build up that feeling of safety, to trust yourself. And like you were saying, if you let it, martial arts, particularly Jeet Kune Do, can be a beautiful language of emotional health. The problem is, a lot of martial artists don't want to see that or cannot see that.
That's true.
I was like I said in our last episode, I was watching some MMA yesterday, and these two guys, they're not Jeet Kune Do guys, but they're picking their moments and they're taking up space. And when my opponent expands, I contract. When he contracts, I expand. When there's emptiness, I hit. It hits all by itself. Is the whole Enter the Dragon thing. They're doing that. Like, they haven't picked a moment, but they're doing it, and the crowd is booing because no one's bleeding. And I'm just like, there's a lot going on here, guys, if you just watch what is actually happening. And so, for me, it was the art of, like I said, not self-abandoning, and also the art of just making peace with my body and not feeling so frail and in danger the whole time, and just going, you know what, I set a challenge out for myself. The first time I did that warm-up, I thought I was going to throw up. Somebody said to me, jokingly, oh, I didn't throw up, and I was like, oh, okay, a few more people are thinking that too, but I got through it, and I went to the next one, and to the next one, and to the next one, and I learned how important Like we say at the end of every class, we do this bow ritual, which is you do your right hand's a fist and your left hand is papered over it. And the right hand represents power, left hand represents knowledge, and when we put them together, you have a complete individual. And I felt like it was the art of me becoming a complete individual, going, okay, you know what, I would love to live in a world where words solve everything, but I also don't live in that world. And I want to make sure that I'm safe in that world and also healthy in that world.
Yeah, I mean, Bruce Lee's philosophy, one of his philosophies and one of his quotes was, do not pray for an easy life, pray for the strength to endure a difficult one. And it made sense that Jeet Kune Do, as designed as a tool for empowerment and a martial art that uses kinetics and physics to execute the most efficient ways of basically getting home safe, because it's scientific street fighting. Like that's why when we say Spike is doing camera Jeet Kune Do and he's not doing real Jeet Kune Do, that's because if you ever see somebody do actual Jeet Kune Do on camera, it looks terrible. It looks really bad. It looks awful.
You look like a jumbo shrimp that's moving 2 inches at a time. It is not cinematic to look at. It is brilliant. That is not the same thing.
Right. Now, when you realize that the person who
hunched over and
you all crunched up and stuff, like one of our seafood says, like the perfect stance posture is you want to look like a hunchback bear. Like that's literally what you want to look.
I never heard that before. That's really good.
He never said that to you?
No, Quasimodo bear?
Yeah, like well, okay, so here's the interesting thing about that fact. That is by design. When you realize that Bruce Lee was a filmmaker, Bruce Lee was just that smart, and he happened to have the life experience to do that on purpose. So there's a reason it looks bad, because and obviously this was the 60s when he invented this. He didn't see smartphones coming, but the man had so much foresight that he knew that if people saw a fight, a bunch of people would crowd around to look at it and not help you get out of it. Well, if you practice a martial art like we do, where it's designed to get you home as safe and as quickly and as efficiently as possible, that also happens to not look like something you could put on Instagram, then guess who's getting home faster? The Jeet Kune Do guy, or the mixed martial arts guy? Definitely the Jeet Kune Do guy is getting home faster if he's good enough and can defeat the mixed martial arts one, because he's not trying to be flashy. He or she, they are not trying to be flashy. They're trying to get away from the assailant. That's the whole thing. And then Alex,
they say why aren't there Jeet Kune Do tournaments? It's like, well, because it's a race to who can punch each other in the face one time and then run. Right. That's not a competition.
Yeah, that's not a competition. Like even when we're doing knife, what's the first thing that the Sifu say? Like whenever you see a knife, run.
Run.
Yeah. And then we proceed to do everything that you need to do if running is not an option. That is the philosophy they build in so many things that we do. Avoid fighting. I mean, there's a whole scene in one of Bruce Lee's movies where, in order to go ahead, tell them what the scene is. You already know what I'm talking about. Tell them.
So I've only seen this movie once, but so he gets into an argument with a guy, and the guy's like up in his face, I think, and he tricks him into getting on a boat, and then just like pulls the line off and watches him drift away, and he goes, fighting by not fighting, like yeah, sometimes you can just go, all right, yeah, I'll fuck you up, buddy. Yeah, we'll go at it. Just walk a little bit here. Bye.
Right.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, cause like, what do you have to prove? You're in the middle of the street or on a boat. In his case,
teach anybody anything. It's go home.
Yeah, it's like I want to just go home. I want to go home to see my family and not have bruises or possibly be picking somebody else's teeth out of my knuckles. Both are inconvenient, So
I don't want to make this last any longer. I want to go home where I keep my Netflix and hot chocolate, which is way more fun than being in an eye gouging contest. And that's where I'm going to go as efficiently as possible.
There you go. Yeah. That being said, Alex said a word that we find extremely important in Jeet Kune Do, which also explains what Jeet Kune Do even is. Jeet Kune Do roughly translates to the way of the intercepting fist. Alex used the word interception just a little while ago. What does that mean? Well, essentially, it means that our primary punches, our primary kicks are designed to shut down an opponent as they're moving before they make contact with you. So, do we know how to block? Yes. But blocking is discouraged because it's still taking impact. Alex, why don't you continue that thread of thinking?
Sure. Our attacks are designed to... Everything about Jeet Kune Do is geared toward interception. It's the pinnacle of the art, which is, like I said, not fighting, but obviously the absolute best case scenario is fighting by not fighting. You just talk it out. But if you have to fight, which is someone goes to attack you, they're open, and you strike on their opening. You are not reading, oh, it's this technique, it's this, and I do this, this, and this. It is going face open, crack, run. It is the simplest driving toward that thing. Everything is geared toward that. And so we do things that are different from every other martial art because they are geared toward that. Like we fight with our strong hand forward. Every other art fights with the left, if you're right-handed, your left hand to probe and then deliver across. Now, when I spar with a friend who does boxing, it took him a long time to be able to land a right on me because it's farther back and I can see it coming. It is the mathematical advantages of the stance. Everything we do is designed to end a fight, not to prolong it for a crowd. Including Bruce Lee thought, how can I kick men in the balls? So often. He was like Bobby Hill on roids. That's my purse. I don't know you. Put a clip of that right now, because that's what was going on in this man's head. It was become famous, the greatest martial artist ever, the greatest Asian film star, and kick men in the balls. That was his triangle.
That's my purse. I don't know you.
Everything we do is geared toward, every martial art goes for opening, but we go for reading. Like one of the big things in Jeet Kune Do is not, like I said, it's not a techniques-based art. It is a kinetics and physics-based art. It is reading the motions. It is boiling things down to their... The beautiful irony to me of Jeet Kune Do is that it is... They say the art of Jeet Kune Do is simply to simplify. It is there's two ways somebody can hit you, straight line, curve line. It's what is the simplest answer of how to deal with this myriad of things. But in so doing, in boiling your plan down to those simplifications, it allows your body to take to those mathematical principles in a way that provides an infinite spectrum of everybody does Jeet Kune Do differently, which feels like it doesn't make sense until you realize, like, well, everybody's different, but everybody has, in theory, 2 arms and 2 legs, and now how to use them to maximum efficiency. It is the math of the human body simplified so that the personal attributes can take over and shine through them, because everyone's going to deliver a straight lead differently. But a straight lead is always a straight lead when you teach it to somebody. And so, if we're going to bring this out to an emotional way, emotional language part, it's like, well, there is something to be said about not overcomplicating your problems. And in so doing, going, okay, what is the best way I can work through this, the healthiest way that I don't step on anyone's boundaries, but also maintain my own, take up space without taking up too much space, or I don't go into narcissism, but I also don't go into self-abandonment. When you tell somebody, hey, just do the level-headed thing, it doesn't really mean anything until you discuss 4 or 5 ways, and then if they learn those 4 or 5 ways, now the shades make a lot more sense because they become applicable to situations, and as they become applicable to situations, your stamp of how they get expressed comes out, and that's Jeet Kune Do's the main thing. For something that is so simple that the ideal situation is someone takes a step forward to you and you punch them in the face with your longest tool and go home. It is I was just about to say something cool. What was it? One of these things about Bruce Lee saying everybody is different. But, what was it? I got lost in the mechanics.
No, it's okay.
I'll get it in 45 minutes, I'm sure.
No, that's the nature of it. We often get lost in the mechanics.
It's that, you know what I'm saying. I'm circling around.
No. I know what you mean,
if you will.
No, I get it. I 100% know what you mean. Well, within the vein of us sharing.
Go ahead.
The
ultimate expression of Jeet Kune Do is personal liberation.
Yeah.
Of how your body does these things. That's what I was trying to say.
Yes, personal liberation.
We're not here to style nor system. We are personal liberation.
that leads
emotionally in this situation too.
Right, yeah. Now that leads very beautifully into what happens in the episode Waltz for Venus, because the real main character of the episode isn't really Spike, which the episode, if you know Bebop, you know that they do that a lot, where like our main crew actually ends up being the side characters of stories as they appear as different vignettes throughout the whole series, and this is one of those. The main character is a guy by the name of what was his name? Rocco Bonnaroo or something like that? Rocco Bonnaroo.
Yeah, I think his last name is Bonnaroo or something like that, but it's Rocco.
Yeah. So Rocco, when you meet him on that airplane, he is not somebody that has personal liberation. He is somebody who lives under the thumb of the criminals that he is forced to, be around in order to help his sister Stella survive. The only way that he was able to get a hold of the plant that could cure her sickness was to get involved in these very, very messed up, or get involved with these very messed up people. And they are actually within the next bounty that the Bebop crew happens to be after by sheer coincidence. Well, the way Rocco meets the Bebop crew in this moment happens to be where Spike was on this plane and he was asleep, and then the hijackers with their synchronized watches decided to take over the plane. And Spike, being half asleep, ended up taking them all out without really trying to. And, the untrained eye, they would think, oh, that's just amazing anime stuff. Well, from the Jeet Kune Do eye, you realize that can someone who does Jeet Kune Do literally fight in their sleep? No. But it is referential to the 3 parts of Jeet Kune Do in terms of the progress that we like to track, which is partiality, fluidity, and emptiness. So in the beginning, just to summarize all this, you have partiality, which just means you're learning how to punch or kick or learning to do anything new in general. And the new thing is uncomfortable for you because it is new. This is true of anything new that you try to learn, especially if you try to learn things deliberately. Then there's fluidity, where you learn just enough about it where you don't have to think so much about doing it, and the answers are a bit more studied. Like, you have them in your pocket, but you have to think about pulling them out at the right time, that sort of thing. Some things you do, some things you don't. Then you reach the stage of emptiness. Emptiness is a very philosophical way of us talking about autopilot, muscle memory, where you no longer have to send deliberate signals to your body. Your body and your mind are so synchronized and practiced within this moment, it just understands how to react to the moment without you having to think about it. And most people who achieve emptiness, frankly, emptiness is something that you achieve at different points. Like, it's not like going Super Saiyan, where you're like base form and then you hit Kaioken and you go Super Saiyan and you just go up. It's not linear like that. It doesn't happen like that. Like, you could be a beginner and then do like 500 punches and still be a beginner, but somehow you don't have to think about your punches anymore. You could achieve emptiness early, you could achieve it late. That's the whole personal attributes, personal liberation thing. Your path, it all depends on you and how much you put into it. Some things are going to come faster than others. In the case of Spike,
yeah, and you can be at partiality and fluidity with different types of, like, you could have a really hard time with trapping.
Yeah.
And you could be kind of great at throwing kicks day one. Probably not, but it could happen where you could be a different, but the art of all of totality for you has not hit the dissolving stage. It's literally like we say, it's a circle with no circumference, which is a dot. I understand that. I guess one math nerd was like, that's actually a dot. Oh, crack, backfist. But it's, the point being, the lens can be as small as you want. Like, oh, one of the things that I always loved before we were friends, when they were partners.
Yes.
I could see how much you were drilling on techniques, and I was like, good, I'm going to get so much done. We're going to be, because we both want to be here.
Yes.
And we both want to be here in a way that is learning. It is not trying to, like, it's not pissing contest learning. So I know that we have that same lens of like, okay, if I'm off by 1 millimeter, tell me, because I don't want to be off by 3 millimeters when I'm adrenaline buzzing in the street. But also, it's the lens, like I said, the circle can be as big as you want. It can be, where am I at in my journey? Am I focusing too much on technique and not enough on the philosophy? Am I focusing so much on philosophy and vibes that I'm getting sloppy? It is literally almost like when we were talking about Perfect Blue in the last episode, there's so many different threads that require analysis that the answer is often a question mark, but in a positive way, where you got to go, I will find an answer, or I will get as close as I can to an answer. But there's so many questions to ask that essentially all boil down to the same question, depending on the lens with which I am asking the big question, which is how far into this martial art am I into becoming myself?
Yeah, 100%.
All of the questions stem from that one question.
No, 100%. And that's really what you're searching for. Every single one of these fights, every time you spar, every time you strike, grapple. What are the 5 things that we do in Jeet Kune Do?
Kick, punch, trap, grapple, and use a weapon.
That's right. Every time you do any one of these things,
I'm also the know-it-all, like, teacher's pet in class where I yell out a lot of answers if I can't.
I enjoy every single time. I enjoy it because I learn more and more every time. I love doing classes with Alex because he's always the guy that he's very textbook about this stuff, and I appreciate that because I can learn more and more every single time, and especially if you're the kind of person that goes into this art without a whole lot of stuff to prove to people, without a lot of ego, you'll have a good time. And also Jeet Kune Do, it attracts really decent people. Like there's martial arts cultures where people are just mean, and Jeet Kune Do is not like that. Like it doesn't really work very well if you're not kind-hearted and don't have a sense of empathy in general. Like you won't be able to do it, which is also very interesting. Back to Spike, he has these skills. And Stella sees that in him. Honestly, if he didn't have it, he wouldn't be as good in Jeet Kune Do as he actually is. But Spike's problem is that he believes that he's not the person that his art requires him to be. He thinks he's not that guy, but he definitely is that guy. And when you know a lot about Jeet Kune,
he has the skills to be himself, but he's also running from who he actually is. So he is not quite. He is kept this far from the dissolving stage of emptiness because he is not at peace with himself. Therefore, there's always a little bit that is just not quite at totality. But you can see that he could.
Yes.
Which is what makes it really compelling.
Yes. Spike is what we will refer to as a phase 6. Because in Jeet Kune Do, there are 6 phases. There are 6 phases that you go through until you reach like the instructor phases, depending on the person, obviously. The instructor phases where you start to teach people, and then you get your certificates, and then you become Sifu. We currently study under probably is after Chris Kent. Would he be the second highest in Jeet Kune Do in the world?
As far as I know, I mean, he's got direct ties to the Lee family, so pretty high.
Yeah, he's pretty high. I mean, so just so you guys know, so it all started with Bruce Lee, right? And then he had a private student by the name of Ted Wong. That was his longest student. But he also had an additional student. His name was Dan Inosanto. Him, right? I'm getting that right? Yes. Okay. So Dan Inosanto had a.
If you've seen Game of Death, he's the guy with the red collie sticks.
Yes. Exactly. So Dan Inosanto had one student by the name of Sifu Chris Kent. Ted Wong, on the other hand, had a student by the name of Sifu Dino, or we call him Sifu Dino. That's the person that we train under. Well, Sifu Dino was certified by Ted Wong, who was Bruce Lee's longest student. He was also certified by Chris Kent, who was one of Bruce Lee's students' longest students. And that means that there were two lines coming from Bruce Lee that both converged onto the head of our schools. And we trained under him, 5-6 days a week, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I try to go at least 3 a week. I want to go more, but I'm working.
Yeah, same. Yeah, back when my schedule was different, I was in there like 6 days a week, something like that, at the old Brooklyn location. But anyway,
which I miss. It was beautiful.
Oh, it was wonderful over there. They had a giant mural of Bruce Lee and everything. I took a picture of it on the day that it closed. I'm gonna post it here so people can appreciate it with us.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. It also had a full-on octagon, and if you have never sparred or fought in an octagon, it is intimidating.
Yeah.
I'm glad I did it once just for the experience, but if someone's like, like if you and I are telling someone like, hey, I'm having a hard time sparring, like it's kind of getting in my head, they're like, well, you don't want to go backwards in progress. I'm like, hang on, let me open the gate to the chamber of violence. You want to go in here? Every step you take is weirdly loud and it's upsetting.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Yeah. I don't know how they do this professionally, but you know what? I did it once.
Yeah. No, the octagon was fun. We don't have it anymore. But so what we see on screen in the episode Waltz of Venus, when Spike comes out of his unconsciousness and he's fighting, he's in a state of emptiness because he's a phase 6, or at least if you define him in Jeet Kune Do, real Jeet Kune Do terms, he's a phase 6 whose muscle memory is so tight that his body just acts automatically under these intense combat situations, which is what Rocco sees him do. And that is the thing that makes Rocco want to, study under him. Interesting thing I noticed, which I thought was hilarious, when Rocco's like, because he's not a very serious man. He doesn't learn how to take things seriously until later, which is how he ended up in this mess in the first place. But when he's chasing Spike out to get him to teach him, he calls him master. Sifu is something that we refer to our teachers as, and it roughly translates to master. So you could see like there were all these little callbacks to the actual martial art throughout the episode. It was a really adorable thing, honestly.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I love about the way Spike is portrayed as fighting in this episode, and generally in the series, particularly the first scene of the Bebop movie, the way I watch this scene where he's waking up and fighting them, I think you're right. I think he probably is half asleep. I also would not put it past Spike to feign being half asleep so that he can attack by drawing, which is one of the 5 ways of attack. It is also the most difficult one to pull off, because he definitely does that at other points in the series. Like, there's been, I think it's in the movie, he looks at his shoe, he just goes, huh? So the guy will look down, and he just kicks him in the face. Because he knows that if you look somewhere, your opponent very likely will look there. One of the ways that they tell you to intercept, attack by drawing is the one that generally is best for setting up the interception, is if you're just doing like that rocker shuffle, just kind of moving in your stance, bouncing around, just freeze.
Right.
They might likely freeze too, and then you can move because you're ready to, you have a plan for after the freeze. They don't. They're just following your movements. They don't realize they're mirroring you. So a lot of Jeet Kune Do's whole thing, and why it is often better than other martial arts, is because it has a game plan beyond just the strategy of how do I kick them, it's like, okay, but what do I do to most efficiently beat what they are prepared to do? Like we say in class, don't play their game. If you go up against a wrestler and he gets in a wrestler stance, do not wrestle that man. You're going to die.
Yeah.
Kick that man in the face. And if the guy comes at you like in a boxing stance, kick him in the balls or blow out his kneecap. He's not ready for leg kicks. Like they always do. And what I thought was really interesting about taking Jeet Kune Do, and I hate that I'm often this impressionable from pop culture, but sometimes it leads to good things, like a Dragon Ball episode taught me the value of like progressive overload, but also, so that episode of King of the Hill with the "That's my purse, I don't know you," and Hank Hill goes, "Bobby, that's dirty fighting." So when I first showed up Jeet Kune Do, it was just like, here's the best way of kicking the groin, and through the stance, this is the way of kicking the groin. Part of me is like, wait, that's not cool, and now I'm like, the street isn't for cool. The street is for going home. But it took me a minute to get over that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's like, that doesn't seem fair. It's like, there's a man attacking you. Gouge his eyes, bite his face if you have to, and then go home where you keep your Netflix. And that will be better for it.
Let's talk to the listeners, to the day chasers, especially the one Mixed Master 5331. Let's talk to them about that wonderful scene where Spike finally decides to train Rocco, and he's explaining the concept of being like water, needing to be fluid. Tell them a little bit about what that means from the perspective of a real Jeet Kune Do practitioner.
Sure. So the thing about A, because he was a movie star, so he's going to think in terms of branding. But B, this is also really good advice. The tagline of Jeet Kune Do is, be like water. And there's a whole monologue you can look up Bruce Lee doing. It's really cool. And basically what he says is, water can take any form. It is not beholden to what you want it to be. It is what it is. It finds its own level. It operates on pure math. And that all leads down to the best explanation, which is it can flow or it can crash. If you put water into your hand, but you squeeze it too tight, it will come out of your hand. But if you get hit by a tidal wave, your house will get fucked up. It has both of those capabilities. And that's what you want to be like in a fight, not just physically, you want to be ready to adapt to things that are happening to you. But also you want to be in that state of fluidity where you know that like, okay, I am in a fight, I won't be in a fight later, I gotta get out of this fight. Like you're operating on 2 different levels of fluidity and a whole spectrum of them in between, but just to generalize it. So what I love about that scene is he doesn't, in that whole scene, he does not teach Rocco one actual, like, how to throw a tool technique. He doesn't go, this is a straight lead. He doesn't go, this is a jab. He does not go, this is a pendulum hook kick. Day one, he says, you're too tense, you're too beholden to the idea of what fighting should look like, and that is working against you. That's the preamble to everything that he could show him. And he's like, what do you mean? I gotta be, like, really strong. And he goes, come at me with a knife. And he's like, you're gonna get hurt. He goes, just come at me with a knife. And Rocco goes, flick, and comes at him, and Spike just gets out of the way and just, like, Aikido throws him in the ground. And he's like, how'd you do that? He goes, you're tense, I'm calm, I use that against you. Water knows how to get around solid objects. It is a mathematical certainty. Unless it is air and water tight, water always wins.
Water can take any form. It drifts without effort one moment, then pounds down in a torrent the very next.
Be water, my friend.
And so I think it's so cool. That scene, it is a very interesting physical combination where he's literally throwing him, and you see the danger if he's in with a knife. That is a philosophical scene above all else. It isn't saying, breathe, buddy, because you can't, unless you learn to just chill the fuck out, none of this shit is going to work. And I think that is a really good life skill to learn, in that, like we say in class, the logo of our school is a triangle with a circle that has no circumference, which is a dot. I understand that, but and it has SMB, and that does not stand for, like, so many boys, as I like to joke with. It stands for so many boys. It's spirit, mind, and body, because spirit is on top. And I'm an atheist, so I interpret that as emotional understanding and emotional intelligence. And I don't think that's literally, supernatural. But I do think that is good advice, because yes, you need to keep your body in shape. You need to make sure that your training is on point, that it is not causing you more harm than good, that you are not tense. You need to have your knowledge intact so that you're not straining to come up with answers, that you're not slacking and being sloppy in what you know you should do. But on top of that, more important than both of them, and neither of those will work if top isn't right, you have to be as close to emotional peace and boundaries as you can. You have to be in harmony with yourself, or the other two will not work as well. And you could have a day where you're training and you're like, why isn't this working? Am I tired? Why are my pendulum hook kicks shitty? Why is my hand not aligned with and you go, oh, I had a terrible day. I'm fried. This isn't gonna work, because I would love to show up to this with pure emotional reserves. I don't have that today. Today's not a day when that's going to happen. And that's also part of the process, is knowing your own limitations, but going with them so that, as we say, no way as way, no limitation as limitation. Being you have the freedom, but also with freedom, there's one of my favorite Bob Dylan lyrics. Yes, I found a way to link G Kundo to Bob Dylan.
He did it.
I'm happy about it. He did it. It's done. Is to live outside the law, you must be honest. Which, in this context, what I'm trying to say is, to have the freedom to do anything possible, you have to acknowledge that there are limits of what you can actually do. That does not mean you have ultimate power and ultimate skill and ultimate resources. That means you are fully aware of what you can and cannot do, and that you have no biases for or against anything that you could learn and achieve. But we learn how to, bob and weave underhooks. I have tried those in sparring. I'm not fast enough to pull them up, so I can't do those. That's fine. When we do elbow, we do downward elbow. My shoulder, if you can see in the camera right now, will not go above 10 o'clock. My arm does not move that high. So I can't do those. So in real life, what would I do? I'd do a 12 to 6 elbow, which are illegal in the UFC, but last time I checked, Street doesn't have regulations. So I have to work around my own physiological limitations. But in so doing, I know that I will find an answer to these questions, which is, well, how do I deliver a close range shot that's really gonna hurt? Okay, well, I can't do this one. Let's figure out something else. And in so being, not having those bias and preconceived notions, I know that I can achieve so much, and that's when I have a clear eye toward my actual stats, if you will.
And that's when the fluidity really starts to click in. That's the moment where, well, I guess from speaking in the vein of what you're saying, The first lesson, and essentially the only lesson that Spike teaches Rocco about Jeet Kune Do, is that his internal reality needs to be settled before he can do anything external. And the philosophy of being like water, of being fluid, it's a lot more than just moving your body at the right time. It's about managing your nervous system. It's about psychologically placing yourself in the moment and not being distracted. It's about entering and achieving and basically learning how to summon a psychological and emotional state of mind that allows you to act in the best possible way in the moment as it's happening, which is an extremely difficult thing to do for anyone to do. And so much of Jeet Kune Do, especially in the beginning, is learning not just fight IQ, which is a totally different thing where you understand what tool to use when. It's more about how do you make yourself calm enough to be able to think hit, which is like our whole thing. It's on the back of all our shirts. It says think hit, think hit. Initially, when you see think hit, it doesn't really read as what they mean it to be. It sounds almost like think and then hit, or think about hitting. That's not what it means. It means every thought that you have needs to be forming a hit. So you're thinking about this punch, you're thinking about that kick, you're thinking about that. And obviously it's not, and that's the other tricky thing about it. It can't be so literal where you go into a match or a situation thinking, I'm going to kick them, I'm going to do that. That's like the best way to learn. That's the fastest way to lose, to think about the exact thing you want to do to somebody else. That's not how it is. You want to think about...
That's not reacting to the reality.
Right, exactly. You want to react to the reality with the best possible tools, which is why you drill them. This is why we drill them. This is why we spar. This is why we train in wrestling and weapon and kicking and punching. This is why we do it, because there's a whole lot of different, and trapping, there's a whole lot of different situations that could come up. And if you are not well versed in the language associated with each one of them, you will be in that moment and not know what to do. And the last thing you want to be in the street, or in the case of Rocco's situation, is not knowing what to do, which is exactly where he emotionally was when he met Spike. That's the real appeal of Jeet Kune Do for him. He met a man that knew what to do in that moment, even without understanding it, even without 100% being aware of the moment. He just knew what to do. He knew how to deal with it. And which kind of brings us to I guess the real elephant in the room. What specifically is the fake Jeet Kune Do? The scene where he fights the red-eye dude, that's fake Jeet Kune Do.
Yeah. So the thing about Bruce Lee is that, like we said, he invented a martial art that is so mathematically brilliant, but looks fucking dumb, or like nothing. And it's so efficient that it does not read well on camera. So if you watch his films, what he is doing is not Jeet Kune Do. It is modified, like if there's... fights in Way of the Dragon, where his front hand is dropped the way we do. His back heel is off the ground. But he is in such a wide stance that I can only imagine if Bruce Lee in real life met Bruce Lee in Way of the Dragon, he'd go, "What the fuck are you doing? You're begging for ball kicks. Is that what you're doing today? Begging for ball kicks? No shame, no king shaming, but I think you want to close them a little bit because you're a bit open." And if you look at how Spike fights, it's very often clearly like they took a Bruce Lee shot and like traced it. If only vibes wise. Because he does really cool side kick and stuff, but like he kicks really high. And Bruce Lee in movies kicked high. In real life, he was like, well, to kick high, everybody goes, "Oh shit, you are kicking up, you are changing levels in a way that is unnatural. If your foot, which is your lowest tool, is going towards someone's head, which is the highest target, you have now fucked your own structure. And if you get them, great. But if you don't, you have to, it takes time to go back down to a normal structure, which you are begging to be intercepted on the way down. It's one of those things, it is high risk, high reward, because a head kick will really hurt somebody, but Jeet Kune Do is a game of inches. I've never been a part of anything that is so focused on, hey, your head is up like 2 millimeters too high, you're gonna get uppercut. If you were to watch Charles and I in class when we were partnered, and you didn't know how Jeet Kune Do people speak together each other, you'd go, wow, they're really in a pissing contest of who can tell each other they're doing this wrong. But we're not. We're going, hey, I noticed your back foot's moving a little bit too much. Oh, thank you. Oh, your hip's actually moving slightly behind your foot on that rear leg hook kick. Oh, I didn't know I was doing that. Been doing that for 4 years. Better work on that. We're actually seeing each other clearly because we trust each other. And we know that if somebody gives you advice and they don't know what they're doing, yeah, it can be annoying. But if you have a friend and there is an implicit, like, if you see something, tell me what I'm doing wrong so I don't do it anymore.
See something, say something.
Especially because especially because we're actually emotionally close, so I trust you even more. I want you to tell me those things. And so, the way Spike fights, it looks rad.
Oh, it's
he does
so cool.
Many inefficient things. In that red eye fight with Asimov, he's doing flippy kicks and stuff, and like that is not the straightest way to an interception. He's stunning on this man.
Yeah.
Now it is my headcanon that he is just he does the techniques of Jeet Kune Do and has the vibe, but in terms of the simplicity, he's like, nah, I'm good. He's just said no to it, which is his flaw. It's my personal theory. But also, I think the real answer is Shinichiro Watanabe just doesn't know a lot about Jeet Kune Do. He just thought Bruce Lee's fighting is cool, which is fine, but it is not, like I said, Bruce Lee invented a martial art that does not read well on camera. So he invented another martial art, which was a modification of that, so that you could see what's cool about the one that doesn't read on camera, so that he could show you what he was trying to say, the emotional point of it, of look at how much more efficient I am than other people, but it would actually be cool to watch him fuck up Kareem Abdul-Jabbar doing. Because if Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and him in the end of Game of Death were fighting like real Jeet Kune Do people, you'd be like, that is two hunchback bears staring at each other until one of them takes a slightly too big step, the other one kicks him in the balls and goes home. This isn't a movie. So it has to go through a movie film. I don't know if it's called camera Jeet Kune Do, but that's what you and I call it. So Spike is not doing real Jeet Kune Do. But I don't think he should be doing real Jeet Kune Do because it would be unwatchable.
Yeah, that whole anime would suck. If he did real Jeet Kune Do, like
terrible.
It would be so. Every time the fight scenes would start, people would fall asleep. Like it would be a mess. It would be so bad. So you got to do. I call it Bebop Jeet Kune Do, because even camera Jeet Kune Do doesn't look exactly the way that Spike does it, because there's all these, animation things that happen that can't possibly happen to be captured in camera. I'm a filmmaker myself as well, so I'm like keenly aware of some of these other elements, especially when it comes to choreography and what a camera can capture. And I don't know if you've actually been watching the channel or just listening to it, but I like to animate. I'm an animator. I don't use AI. Both of these characters I made with my own two hands that I also use to do straight leads in Jeet Kune Do. So I kind of have...
Despite what Reddit told us that couple of times to make us feel bad.
Oh my God. Speaking of comment, because we're basing this episode on a whole comment. One of the darkest comments we got, which is also kind of hilarious, is this show was made by a child. By a literal child with an AI. And I'm like, wow. I'm only a child at heart, first of all. Okay?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Anyway.
Sure, you could argue we're two man-children who grew up on way too much Toonami and turned it into reality, but the point being, we turned it into reality. That's what men do when they watch too much Toonami.
That's right. And yeah, I might not ever be able to...
And there's no AI involved.
No AI involved. And yeah, I can't scream my hair blonde and go Super Saiyan, but I know the same martial art that Spike Spiegel does. So, what you gonna do now? What you gonna do now? Nothing. Anyway.
Now, we also have to practice what we preach in Jeet Kune Do and go, no, the art of not fighting is not fighting. Let's just not go on Reddit. That's a bad place.
We just left Reddit. We're not doing Reddit anymore. Everything about Jeet Kune Do says don't go on Reddit.
Yeah, don't play their game. Reddit people, and this is as good an example as it is, but they want you to show up and say anything so they can take the worst possible read of what you were saying and they can try to hurt you. And now you can go and try to reason with them and then you get into a fight, but that's the game they want to play. That is essentially going up to a wrestler and trying to wrestle them. But you shouldn't do that. You should play to their weakness, which is not giving them attention. And then they spiral, and that's maybe how we get some more fascism, which is not great. But point being, you don't have to fuck up your own day.
Yes, exactly. That philosophy, it guides a lot of what me and Alex do in life. It's especially guided not only our friendship, but just our, individual, because we're not around each other all the time, obviously, but, our individual ways of dealing with day-to-day issues and conflicts and things like that. And it guided Roko. I'm saying Rococo because I'm thinking about
that is an Arcade Fire song.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this motion capture suit that I want to buy. It's called the Rococo. Anyway, so by the end,
oh my god, you with a mocap suit? Oh my god.
Oh, it would be over for the internet.
You'd be like, I'm revamping the channel, and now we're both in the movie Better Man. I'm like, well, okay, all right.
But yeah, so by the end of the episode, Roko is a very different person. Does he know how to punch? No. Does he know any of the 5 stages or techniques of Jeet Kune Do? No. Does he know any techniques? No. But what he does know and has absorbed into himself is the crowning principle philosophy of Jeet Kune Do, which is to be fluid, to be like water, and to adapt to a situation and allow the situation to dictate who you are in that moment, as opposed to fighting rigidly with it the way that he was in the beginning. So the level of courage that he displays when he shows up to meet Spike is completely different from the kind of person he was. That moment was beautiful for me because when I started Jeet Kune Do, I remember my first day, I was exceptionally nervous. And interestingly enough, it was a fight fit. I wasn't even throwing punches. It was a fight fit, which is just a workout class where you do specific workouts to make you physically healthy enough to actually use Jeet Kune Do. And I was terrified, but I made myself do it. And the way I did it, I remember I was sitting in the locker room in the old Brooklyn location before it closed, and I was so scared, I was shaking. And then finally, I just was honest with myself, and I said, I am too afraid to deal with this. And then the second I just admitted it to myself, I was suddenly not afraid. I was so calm. It was a calm that I had never felt before that moment. And it wasn't about I was no longer afraid. It was I was at peace with the fact that I experienced fear. So what I generated in that moment was actual, genuine, true courage. Because I didn't stop being afraid in that moment. I just allowed myself to not judge the feeling anymore. And then I could proceed forward without attacking myself for being afraid. Because fights are scary.
And that's part of emotional literacy, is going, why do I feel bad right now? I'm afraid. What am I afraid of? I'm worried that this, and this are going to happen. Well, one of those is unlikely, one of those I can deal with, and the other one is just me full on catastrophizing. And you go, I put words to it. Like, one of the things that I think we don't talk about, and we don't talk about, by the way, mostly any of this stuff in class. We talk about the philosophy of it, but this is just our interpretation of it that I think a lot more people should talk about. But
right,
like I said, the circle with no circumference, it means whatever my opponent is doing, I will do the opposite, because that is what Jeet Kune Do is. I'm flowing toward their weaknesses. I also think it's a pretty great metaphor for having a relationship with your fear. Because let's say you go into a situation and someone's going, hey motherfucker, and they're just yelling, but you can tell it's the kind of yelling someone does when they're trying to scare you and they don't have anything to back it up. And you'd be like, alright, do something. And they go, I would if, yeah, fuck you. And then they walk away, you're like, alright. But also, sometimes you go, you know what, I've prepared for that, and somebody pulls out a knife and you run away because it's not worth keeping your credit card for.
Yep.
Like I said, there is a value to having a fluid relationship with reality in the sense that what is really happening here? I am afraid, or I am comfortable. Okay, those are going to fluctuate, but if I understand them clearly, I can start to ask, why? What in this situation is making me feel especially afraid or especially comfortable? And the more I can do that, it's essentially, I'm circling around the point. If you are calm, you don't have the static in the way of actually living up to your potential, because your abilities actually start to make sense to your central nervous system. And 2, you can sum up threats better. One of the things I love and gives me hope is that traditionally, historically, fascism's biggest weakness is that fascists are terrible at accurately sizing up threats. They go, we're gonna fuck up this town, we're gonna smash all the windows, and then it's gonna be Nazi town. And then the entire town shows up, and like 20 people are there to brawl, but the other people are there to just show solidarity. And the fascists see that and they go, oh no. Because they don't think that far ahead. They think everyone's going to bow down. But they don't understand that enough people will show up with fists and enough people will show up with, like I said, solidarity, that they are outnumbered and they lose. And if you have the ability to understand proper threat recognition, and I don't mean that in the sense of always being paranoid, always, you hear some martial artists be like, everybody have a good time on 4th of July weekend because everybody's crazy out there. I don't want to live in a world where I hear 3-day weekend and my instant reaction is to be afraid. I don't want that to be the expression of my art. But knowing what should I be afraid of and what should I not be afraid of, and if I am afraid, why, and if I'm not afraid, why, you get a much more accurate picture of reality, so then you can shine through, like I said, the personal liberation comes out where you go, hey, I'm alright. Like, it's in a long, roundabout way, it's kind of a language to learn to appreciate yourself in a lot of ways.
That's very true. I want to leave them off from this episode because we could be talking about this for a long time, and if you want to hear more about Jeet Kune Do, we will be making more episodes about this in the future, but like the comment that we just got, the lovely comment, definitely leave the comment if you have additional questions and we'll cover it in the episode. But I want to leave you off with a small story, as I like to do, about probably the most beautiful experience I had doing Jeet Kune Do. So I, up until literally like a week ago, was terrified of sparring to a point where anytime I had to spar, I was on the verge of tears, like 100% about to cry. And it wasn't because I was afraid of getting hurt necessarily. I was just so afraid of hurting anybody else, because the stories and the narratives that I carried about myself said, you are not that guy. You're never supposed to be that guy. You're not going to be that person. And you're not allowed to be that person. It always came back to, you're not allowed to fight for yourself. You're not allowed to raise your fist. You're not allowed to speak up for yourself or anyone else, because that was the emotional conditioning that I was raised on, frankly. Well, one day I was sparring, and mind you, this wasn't the thing that alleviated the fear, but it put me on the path of actually conquering it, which took another 1.5 years to do, frankly. But about 2 years ago, I was in the middle of sparring and I was struggling with it. I had only done it maybe like, 5 or 6 times before that. And I was going against a group of people that sparred very hard. Like, they didn't really pull their punches at all. They were going like, 80% strength. And it was very difficult on me because I was taking hard punches in the head and hits to the rib and everything. And it was nerve-wracking. And I'm somebody who I'm very soft-hearted. I'm not a soft person exactly, but I'm the kind of person that would prefer, I prefer to be kinder and softer with everyone and everything, because that's just the kind of person I am. I'm not somebody that's going in causing fights, or I'm not the tough guy dude in the club. Or like in the classroom. I'm the dude drawing in the back of the class, literally. So. I'm in the middle of this sparring match in 4th.
I'm the one going, Sifu, don't you mean there's 5 ways of attacks? You said 4. I don't mean to talk out of turn. I just want to make sure that I have this right.
You're sitting in the front of the class.
I'm taking mental notes.
So I'm in the middle of sparring, and I remember this exact moment.
The 2 genders of Jeet Kune Do, front of the class and back of the class, but we're both going, yes, I see. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm in the middle of sparring. I'm doing my best against this guy. He's about the same size as me, and I'm like a little bit over 6 feet tall. I'm a pretty big dude. This guy was about my same size, but he was more experienced and he was much more comfortable with letting his hands just fly. Well, I put my hands down about 1/2 inch for about 2 seconds. 1/2 inch.
Of course you did.
2 seconds. This man rocked me. So this man punched me in the mouth so hard that I fell on my back and my top lip was ripped open completely. And I mean, like, I was wearing, and for those of you thinking, why were you using protect? I had headgear on. I had a mouth guard in. It didn't matter. He hit me that hard, and the mouth guard made contact with the inside of my lip, and the rubber, in spite of not being sharp, completely ripped my lip open. And I was laying on my back. The noise of me hitting the ground was so loud that some of the other people sparring stopped. The guy who hit me, very nice dude, very concerned, he immediately went down to check on me, make sure I was good. The Sifu, who was overseeing the entire sparring session, because it was me and like 2 other people on the floor, because the floor was that big, 2 other groups, I mean. And he came over to see if I was okay, because I didn't get up right away. And everybody was crowding around me. And I remember sitting there, I was laying on my back on the floor, and I was thinking, wow, why isn't this worse? Why isn't this worse? And as I was sitting there, I thought all of the stories I said about myself, or to myself, when I imagined what would it be like if somebody hit me full force in the face without me trying to defend myself, if I wasn't ready. I never imagined myself being able to deal with it. I'm not saying like I would like, be like some kind of tough guy hulking out type of, no. What was always important to me was that I would self-abandon and crumble, and I wouldn't like allow myself to be, destroyed by the moment or taken advantage of in some way. Like I would internally crumble. It was the emotions that I was more worried about, not so much the physical injury or anything like that. But that's not what happened. I was laying on the ground, and it occurred to me that I took the hardest punch in my life, and not only am I okay, but I'm far more than okay. There aren't tears rolling down my eyes. I don't have this screaming desire to retreat or surrender or anything like that. The only thing that happened is I got hit harder than I ever did in my life, and I'm okay. And in that moment, all of those horrible stories that I carried on my heart and in my soul, it's like he punched them out of my head. Those stories took more damage than I did. And I thought, wow, so I could just get up and everything will continue to be fine, because I'm strong enough to deal with that too. So I literally just popped up, and I was like, okay, well, let's keep going. But the problem was, one of the other Sifus explained that if you're on the floor and you start bleeding, you have to stop everything you're doing and go wash your face, because the training mats could get you sick. You could get infections. So I asked him, oh, hey, am I bleeding? Which is really how I realized my lip got ripped open, because I didn't know it in the moment. I just felt like the pain. And then I had to stop, and I ran to the bathroom. I took out my mouth guard, and there was just meat and blood just covered in it. And I just looked at it for a second, and I thought about how there was all this psychological space that I had now, because I wasn't carrying those stories anymore. And I thought, I'm not going to leave this bathroom the same version of myself. I'm going to come out of this bathroom kinder, happier, easier to talk to, having an easier time to talk to other people. This is so different. And this is everything that I needed this art to do for me. So it was a wonderful day that day. And yeah, I lost that match. I was on my back. I had my mouth ripped open. My face was swollen for a couple of days. I didn't get any stitches. There was no real reason why I didn't. I just didn't. And I came home. I looked at my kids. Their eyes were brighter to me. I hugged my wife. Like everything colors were more vibrant. It was this overwhelming kind of kindness that I never had for myself, that I suddenly was capable of generating. Ever since that moment, I've been able to be kind to myself in a way that I couldn't before. And if you understand that, you can understand why Rocco walked into that deadly, dangerous scene the way that he did. And when he got killed, and one of the last things he said to Spike was, "Do you think we could have been friends?" He wasn't thinking about the pain. He was thinking about being kind, because that's what Jeet Kune Do could do for you, even before you even learn how to throw a punch.
I have a similar story in that I got rocked by a punch so hard I thought my jaw was broken, went home, cried, and then my stepmom bought me a cake. That's the whole story.
That's a good story.
A cake too. Yeah, it was very nice.
I should get myself a cake now.
My jaw was fine. But like I get very lippy when I'm in pain, or when I feel like I just got hurt, or I'm being threatened, because I got hit with this cross, and it was like I felt like a pop, and they go, "Are you okay?" I said, "I'm fine. My jaw just touched my spine." Like I'm like, "Alex, shut up. This is not gonna make things better." I had to get up a little sass because I was upset.
Oh my God. Anyway, so that being said, thank you so much for watching another episode of the Day Chaser podcast. Please like, share, subscribe. Please leave more of those lovely comments. We really enjoy them. I especially enjoy them. We don't get a lot of comments. Anytime I see one, I get very, very happy. And I love talking to you guys in the comments and all of that. Direct messages, that sort of thing. I initially wanted to end with a podcast game, but I think this podcast is going on a little bit too long, and we'll try to experiment with that on another episode. That being said, y'all have a good night. Goodbye.